Okay, what we want to do now is I'm going to put up some numbers in consecutive order. They'll keep getting a little bit bigger, and they represent different things. And so one of the things that has been said here several times over the years is that you measure a church not by its seating capacity, but by its sending capacity. And so this first number, number 8, has to do somewhat with our sending capacity. So 8 represents the number of Lakesiders who have come through, who are members of our church, who are now full-time pastors or missionaries in other places. So we're pretty thankful for that. So let's give the Lord a hand on that one. We won't have to clap for every one of these, but to me, that's a really cool thing, to take phone calls from men and missionaries, women who have come through, been members of Lakeside, and are now in other churches. So that's a really cool thing. Next number is 9, and it represents the number of original core members of Lakeside who are still at Lakeside. We started with 21 18 years ago. We still have 9 here. So if you're one of the 9, clap for yourself. That's really good. Okay, 17. 17. Anybody know what 17? 17 represents the number of community groups that use our facility in any given semester. So basically from 4 o'clock till about 9 o'clock on the weekdays here when we're not using it, and then the soccer field, we have that many different community groups, and that may even be a little bit short. Okay, 34. 34 is the number of new members at Lakeside Fellowship this year. Adult members, you have to be 18 to be a member, so that's we really appreciate that. 54 is the number of starting point graduates so far this year at Lakeside Fellowship. So I think we're in our 3rd starting point. So that's the number of individuals who have visited the church, who have thought about making Lakeside their church, and they've made a commitment to this 9-week class and have graduated through that. So that's always an important number for me as the pastor. How many people are entering into starting point? And again, as a general rule, a percentage of those are not followers of Christ. They're just now learning about Christ, and so that's a pretty cool thing. This number here is also a really cool number and would speak to the health of our church and a new initiative that Pastor Trevor will talk about. I'll just mention it. But 75 is the number of adults currently being discipled in our newly formed D groups. So a D group is 2 or 3 or 4 people in a group, and right now we have 75 adults meeting weekly or bi-weekly in those groups. 93 is the number of baptisms since July of 2020, or basically in the last 3 years. And that also is a sign of health. Each one of those individuals would have given their testimony and been baptized, made their salvation, made their Christianity, put it out there publicly. Few more numbers here. 109. 109 is the number of Lakesiders who went to help start other churches in the past 4 years. So they would have been, 109 would have been members and their kids who have left to go help plant other churches. That number there is very exciting to me. I'd like to give the Lord a hand for that. So again, in our DNA, we belong to the Engage Network, and we give money from the budget on a yearly basis to the Engage Network to plant churches. And so if we recognize who a church planter might be, we have a residency program. We pay their salary for 18 months. We put them up in a home. We let them experience the Engage churches. And so we just planted our 7th church. So Saylorville plus 7. So we're 8 churches in. So very excited about that. And I think in our 7-year outreach initiative, we have the next church plant that Lakeside would take a major part in for 2026. So just a couple of years away. 117 is the number of kids registered for Kids for Truth program on Sunday nights. Come right here to this building, and so those are young ones, and you should, if you want to come some Sunday night and just visit, that's pretty cool. 160 is a really cool number. Tony will talk a little bit about this. It's the number of young people registered for our youth group from junior high to senior high. So I mean, for a church our size, that is awesome. For somebody who's pastored a church where there was no youth group whatsoever, that number is very awesome. If you've been a part of a church where there are no kids, like, could you say amen to that? Like, yes, absolutely. Okay, couple more. 302. That would be the number of Lakesiders currently in a growth group. So those would be adults that are currently meeting in, I think we have 19 or 20 different growth groups. And then 447 would be the average Sunday morning attendance in 2023. We range anywhere from 390 to 520, depending on what's going on. But the average Sunday morning is 447. And this is a graph. It makes it look like it's 200 different from 2022, but it is according to scale. It's just kind of big. But you can see 2021, we averaged 386, and then 404, and this year so far, 447. So there is a little bit of a growth curve going on there. I don't know as we've ever done this, but in the 18 years, I think if you were to take the average attendance each year, I don't know as there was ever a year where we went backwards. Maybe when we started New City Church and 80 some people went there, maybe that year. So we've never just blown it up in one year. We've never added 200 people at one time, but it's always been this kind of growth. So I'm very thankful for that. I do believe personally, as the lead pastor, we always want to be growing. You never want to not be growing. But personally, my philosophy would be that 2 churches of 500 are better than 1 church of 1,000. And so, if we hadn't been committed to planting churches, that number would be about 600 average on a Sunday morning, and we'd have to make other decisions concerning the space we had, and we would certainly be crimped because we don't have the building yet and those kind of things. So we're very thankful for what God is doing, and it's a blessing. If you read anything about church attendance, and I will refer to it here in just a little bit, nationally, church attendance in the mainline denominations is just plummeting off the chart backwards. And so we're very thankful for what God is doing here. And 772 is the number of people who call Lakeside their home church. So that would be men, women, and children, members, regular attenders. They would, if you met them on the streets, that they would probably say Lakeside is their home church. So certainly, if you average 447, you got another 300 who claim to call Lakeside their home church. On any given Sunday morning, you have about 60% attendance of those who would claim. And of course, we all have busy lives. And so I want to show you this. I've been reading this book about being a missionary in the neighborhood. And it's really a really powerful book in my life. And the book used an illustration. And I'd just like to share it with you because it's really powerful. And I think it really matters for what we're doing here tonight. So this is a bridge over in Honduras called the Chulatica Bridge. And this is the bridge before 1998. And it was a pretty sizable bridge in Honduras at the time. And then in 1998, Hurricane Mitch came through. And it was a hurricane category 5. But by the time it got to Honduras, it was only a category 1, but it did something very rare. It got over Honduras and stayed right there as a category 1. And so it's a mountainous region. And in a number of areas in Honduras, in 3 days' time, they got 75 inches of rain. 6 foot of rain. I mean, think about that. And so it did something very unique. It actually changed the direction of the river. The river moved. So if you flew over this, which the writer of this book did, if you flew over this, you would see that beautiful bridge is not a bridge to anything. The direction of the river has changed. And this was a powerful, powerful visual to me, thinking about the culture that we live in. And I would like us all, challenge us all to think about church as we've always known it. It is not the same to the culture that's out there today. What's happening spiritually, and certainly as far as people that you would just consider to be raised churched, you can no longer just assume that. I wrote down a couple of stats. So for decades and centuries, churches were built in almost every community. I remember when I was pastoring in Algona, they were going to have a new development, and the developer was leaving a section of land to give to anybody that wanted to put a church there, because the church would help that new families would move in around there. Same kind of idea with schools. And so for the longest time, if you've been around church at all, a local church in a community our size would just naturally be kind of a hub of activity. It'd be a welcome thing in a community. And I think to a large degree, at this point, still is in Polk City, but it's changing. Over the last 15 years, and if you read it all, especially since COVID, the whole landscape as far as going to church has changed. We felt that ourselves. The rivers moved, and we need to respond. I could think of 50 churches that I know of personally that are like that bridge right there. The culture used to run through them. Now they're out there. They're still doing their same thing, but the river has moved, and we need to think about how we take the never-changing gospel to an ever-changing culture and win them for Christ. So let me just give you just a couple of stats. So in so-called church communities, the percentage of people who actually attend church in the United States on any given Sunday is about 20%. When 18 years ago, we had no idea what it was to, literally had no idea how to plant a church. We were just doing it, and we were blind, but we surveyed the whole community. And we asked 4 questions. We knock on the door, are you actively attending any church? And then if they said yes, we would ask them which church they were going to. If they said no, we would ask them, why do you think so mmany people don't attend church? Well, in that survey of 1,100 homes, 62% said that they didn't have any place to call home. They didn't go to church on a regular basis. And so nationally, the number's down to 80%. I'm not sure where Polk City would be, but I'm sure it's come down. The number of people who claim no religious affiliation whatsoever has just gone off of the charts. In the last 10 years, the United States has become an actual mission field. We used to be the nation, but predominantly that would send out missionaries to all these other countries, but now we become a mission field. Did you know on any given Sunday, so today, on any given Sunday, there are more fellowshipping believers in communist China than there are in the United States and Europe put together? In communist China, there are more genuine followers of Christ meeting on Sunday morning. And the author of the book that I'm reading, and I'm tracking with him, I'm saying amen as he's writing about this. His thing is that the culture is wore out with churchianity, and what they really need to see is authentic Christianity. And so I think as we go forward, certainly we have these facilities, we have these 17 community groups, and we have the soccer field, and we're involved in Four Seasons Festival, and we're going to talk about some other ways that we're trying to impact the community. We have to build relationships into people's lives. It's no longer put a sign out in front of your building and turn the lights on and open the doors and people are just gonna, that culture is rapidly leaving us. And if we don't think about how to take this never-changing gospel to an ever-changing culture, we're going to be like that bridge. I certainly do not want that to be the case, and I don't think you guys do as well. Jeremiah 29 and verse 7, and in context, this is talking about the people of Israel. But there's a powerful principle that's in there that I think is important for us, and I'll just share the verse. So as they were being taken captive into Babylon, as they were going to go into exile for 70 years, here's what God told those Israelite people as they went into exile for 70 years. As you go into exile, as you live in that land amongst the unbelievers, seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile, and pray to the Lord on its behalf, the city I'm sending you, for in its welfare you will find your welfare. And so I think what God is saying is that Lakeside Fellowship, as we're in this community called Polk City, just having a sign, just having a building is not over the next 10 years going to guarantee that God's going to bless with conversions and baptisms and attendance and youth and young people coming. We have to go out into the community. We have to take the gospel out amongst them. The Great Commission is go and tell, not primarily come and see. And so I want us to double down on the fact that we have to be very strategic. We have to think outside the box. We have to think, how do I take the gospel to that person who's automatically not just going to come to our church and that kind of thing. And I think we're thinking in the right direction. So our prayer and our resources and how we see the building. We said when we got this building that this isn't a landing pad, it's like a launching pad. It's not like, we were nomads for 12 years in the school and met in the Subra's home. And man, it was nice to take a year off and just like kind of have a building and have an office and be able to meet in the same place. And but we've always said this isn't a landing pad. We haven't arrived. This is a launching pad. We send people out. We send the gospel out. We create ministries. We're a solid core. We're a light that shines bright so that we can shine out into the community. And I pray that that's the case. So we're going to have Pastor Trevor and then Pastor Tony just come up and just share a couple of things that we're doing that the Lord is blessing. Some things we want to do. But here's the appeal I would make to you. From Pastor Trevor and Pastor Tony and Pastor Joel and the elders and myself. We're open to ideas on how to reach the neighborhood, how to reach the people in your workplace, how to reach our community. We can use help. Your Lakeside Fellowship, the church's people. You're the church. And so certainly be praying, be thinking, be creative. How can we take the gospel to these lost people? Thursday night, Pastor Trevor and I got to meet with Sean and Jessica, and they live over in the Grimes area, and a couple from our church had been talking to them, and Jessica hadn't actually probably been to church for a church service maybe a handful of times in her entire life. And the couple that come to our church reached out to them and shared with them and invited them to church. Came to church a couple of weeks ago, and Sean, the guy, had grown up in a Catholic church, so him and I were high-fiving each other, talking about Catholic grade school and the nuns and the priests and all that kind of thing. And she knew very little about the gospel. It amazed me how you could be in the Bible Belt here and not really know much. And so we started from the ground floor and shared the gospel with her. And within a couple hours, she was on her knees trusting Christ. And that's because somebody reached out. The building itself was not going to draw that person in, but God had clearly been working. And so I'm going to have Pastor Trevor come up, and he's just going to share a few things. And I've asked Pastor Tony if he'd just take a minute or two and just share about the youth group, just so you guys can be praying, you can be thinking, you can be creative with us.
Hello, how's everybody doing? One other thing I'm going to say about when we met with Jessica the other night, For anyone here who volunteers to do the marked New Testaments, we led her through the marked New Testament, just like we always do. And that's what led her to understand the gospel. So for those of you who volunteer in that area, never think that's going unnoticed, never think it's going unused. We had another person go through it. And it's so valuable to have that method because in her case, she wouldn't have known where to turn if we'd say go to Matthew or Revelation. So to have a marked New Testament for her to guide herself and read the verses, it's just invaluable. So thank you to everybody who's doing a part of that. The other thing I would say about meeting with those two, just as one focus group of one couple we got to meet, one of the things they were saying was that when they walked into Lakeside, they said, we felt lighter here. We felt welcomed here. We felt like people wanted us here. Their kids are already excited about getting involved in Kids for Truth and the middle school youth group. And my wife and I were on a getaway in Omaha this morning, and we went to a church that has great preaching. Not one person said hello to us. Not one. Other than when somebody said, turn and shake hands with the guy next to you. So one guy did. So keep that up, Lakeside. What I'm saying is I think Lakeside does a much better job of that, and that is critical. You never know when you are going to be the one that gets that person to come back another time and start to plug in and get to know people. So keep friendly. That's been a hallmark of Lakeside throughout its history and something we don't want to lose. So that's a good segue into what I'm going to talk about is one of the things that we know we need to do is get more involved in our school district. We've got a lot of kids from the high school that come already. We've got a lot of awareness in the high school building. But over the last couple months, we've been talking about we need to raise Lakeside's profile in the elementary school system, specifically here in Polk City. So Pastor Dave and I were talking about it, some others trying to figure out what could we do. And lo and behold, we've got two people here in our church who both led school outreach programs in previous churches they've been in. So being good pastors, we started twisting their arms and asking if they would be willing to serve in that area here. So we have a new school outreach program that's just getting off the ground. I haven't seen Bree Ludwig. Is she here tonight? I don't think so. Okay, Bree is out sick, but she is heading that up along with Sonia Crane and Becca Riker and who am I forgetting? Haley Powers. Are all getting involved with that. I don't have a ton to tell you about it yet, other than the goal is just to build the connection with Lakeside, and especially with Bree. She's worked as a paraeducator in the public schools. So when we started talking, it seems like there's not a teacher and an administrator she doesn't already know. And we have a lot of connections already to the superintendent. Superintendent Klein is a believer, and they met with him this week, that team. So we're looking forward to getting to know more people in the school district, finding out a lot of that's going to be probably charitable things where we find out about needs in our community. And it's easy to get fooled in Polk City and think, well, I mean, look around. It's an affluent town, right? How much need is there? Well, there is need for sure. And this will help us be more aware of it. That will help us be there and just help Lakeside continue to be evident in the lives of some people in the school district. Some of that's going to take the shape of just helping teachers. I've talked to other churches who have been doing this in the Des Moines area, and one pastor said, we thought we were going to minister to the families. Turns out we're ministering to the teachers. Because if anybody knows life as a public school teacher, that is a calling and that is a hard job. So if that's what we wind up doing, that's great too, if we can be a witness and a support to those educators. So we're excited that that's getting going. I want to talk just a little bit about the discipleship groups, or we call them the D groups that Pastor Dave mentioned. Ephesians chapter 4, verses 11 and 12, one of the things it says a pastor's job to do is to equip the saints for the work of ministry. And it's easy to think the pastors are the ones that do all the work. Well, really our job is to help all of you do a great job with whatever ministry that you're in. And discipleship groups are a really key piece of that. So these are groups of typically 3 or 4 people. I touched on it just briefly in a sermon about a week ago, or exactly a week ago, that these are meeting throughout the week. So right now we have about a dozen ladies groups meeting. And we have 7 guys groups, and there are at least 1 or 2 others that are talking about getting started, especially on the guys' side, as interest continues to grow. And they get together typically once a week, anywhere from an hour to 2 hours, depending on what's available for the people who are in the group. And they get together, they study the word, they talk about the journaling that they've been doing. We're actually getting guys to do journaling out of their Bible study. That alone is a huge step. helping them draw out what are they learning from their Bible study. We do accountability together, and then several of the groups are doing Bible memory together. Some are doing theological studies as they add a book along with their Bible study. So we really view this as it's just a huge win that these have gotten started. And the credit really goes back to Deb Heisterkamp got these going with the ladies somewhere in the neighborhood of almost 2 years ago now. Because out of those dozen or so women's groups, about half or so of those are being led by people who graduated from their discipleship group and are now leading one. So the whole goal is you attend a group for 12 to 18 months, and then you specifically go out and ask 3 to 4 people to be in a group with you. And that way we just keep the cycle going, which is just discipleship 101 from Christ's ministry. And as Paul talks about, committing the gospel to faithful people who will then give it to someone else. So we're really excited that that's happening. We're excited about the crop of next round of D group leaders that we're cultivating right now, who will be leading their own groups in the coming months. And if you're interested in being in one of those, just let me know. We have people jumping in all the time. I just got another request this week from someone who wants to be in a group, so we're finding a spot for them. We're glad to help you find a place. And they meet at a variety of times. Quite a few of them, I mentioned this in the sermon, are meeting at 6 a.m., but we also have some doing evenings. We have some actually meeting during the workday, depending on the person's schedule that can be in there. So regardless of where you're coming from, hopefully we can find a spot that would work for you to be a part of that. So we're really excited about this and see it as a way to cultivate not just future discipleship group leaders, but future leaders in a variety of ministries throughout the church. Another thing that it might seem like a small thing off the radar, but it's really important, is we've got a new crop of people going out and greeting people who have moved into the Polk City community. This was something that Gary Presnell really led for us for a long time, as I'm sure a lot of you know. Gary felt like he was called to go serve with New City. He does business in the city of Ankeny, and he just felt like God was telling him, get involved in evangelism with the church in Ankeny. So he's over at New City now. So that left this hole. And what happens so often, you think in an organization, oh, no one can ever fill those shoes, right? No one, who's going to do that job? Well, we've had some new people step up and doing that. So for the last few weeks, or several months now actually, Terry and Diane Southwick have been going out and handing out, we've got these bags that welcome people to Polk City. We give them a gift card, we give them some information on the church, and really it's just a casual conversation. It's really just meant to say, hey, welcome to the neighborhood. Do you have a church home? You never know what conversation might come out of that. So the Southwicks have been doing that, and then my wife Terry and Stacy Heisterkamp have been going out and doing that. And then I think, Phil, you've done some of these over the last couple of years too. So a big thank you to those folks for stepping up, filling in that ministry hole that we had, and just helping people know who Lakeside is. So we've got quite a backlog. There's a lot of people move into this town, as you might have noticed, but we're catching up, and we have that list of people who've moved in. So we're excited that they're going out and doing that. On the equipping class front, or what we call the bridge, you may have been noticing we're doing those on Sunday mornings now. So we just completed How to Study the Bible that I taught, a 6-week run of that. And then next week, Pastor Joel is starting a new 6-week session of How to Live Like a Christian. Those two classes, if they sound familiar, those are the ones we also offered last spring semester. So we're wrapping those up as another offering now for anybody who didn't get to take those. So if you're interested in how to live like a Christian, and you should be, that's available on Sunday mornings starting at 8:30 next week. And then we'll do that again starting the spring. We'll have new classes. So we're working right now on what we think those classes will be in January. It's looking like we're probably going to do a parenting series starting in January during the first service. And that's something we aim to continue doing as time goes on, and we'll see where schedule leads with once we have a new building and more classrooms. But for now, that's going to be taking place on Sunday mornings. So again, that's something we're excited to have. We weren't offering that a couple of years ago. So when you look at discipleship groups, the equipping classes, we're excited about having those out there. And then lastly, I won't talk a lot about missions because we had a whole missions night, but I just want to say thanks to everybody who came to that. We had almost 300 people here on Wednesday night. And we had no idea who would show up. So we're really excited to have a gym full of people come and hear about the ministries that are going on. I heard from one parent who said their son couldn't quit talking about Brazil the next day. So Deb Safely's happy, right? We got somebody talking about Brazil. That's what matters. I saw Lucas Bear Friday morning at a coffee shop and told him how much I appreciate him being there. And he was blown away too. And if you know Lucas, He's a character, but he told me, he said, man, I walked into that room and I had no idea there would be so many people here. I went and actually looked at my notes to think about what I should say. So we made Lucas get ready when he walked into the room. So great job out of Lakeside. Great job for all the growth group leaders. That was a growth group night. We really encouraged our leaders to have your people come. So we're really glad that so many did turn out. And we announced that the mission trip that we've got going to Oklahoma. I sent an email out on that last week. Keep that in mind. If you're interested in that trip, let me know. We will have an informational meeting on that between services on December 3rd to talk more about going down to Camp Joy in Oklahoma at the end of February, doing some projects down there. Any questions on any of that? If not, I'm going to hand it over to the dapper and charming Pastor Tony.
All right. Many of you, many of you are not involved in our youth ministry here at Lakeside, unless you're helping or maybe have kids that age. So I just wanted to take some time and give you an update of all the different ways God has been blessing really tremendously over the past year. Certainly by the numbers, attendance, we've got about a little over 160 registered. Attendance, unfortunately, is not 100%, but on any given week, on Wednesday nights, we meet with our middle schoolers, 6th through 8th graders. On Sunday nights, so after this, at about 7:30, we'll have high school youth group. It's not ideal as far as the time frames, but it's with our building situation and the amount of kids we have, we make it work. And we're certainly thankful that God has provided even the facilities we have now. We run about between 120 and 130 any given week between those two groups. And we've been blessed tremendously with a lot of great leaders. We have a number of other guys who rotate with teaching throughout the weeks. Our last event that we had a high school corn maze event, and we had a middle school one. And one of our leaders, Seth, shared his testimony of how God worked in his life as a young person, going to church, being in church, praying a prayer, thinking he was good to go with God. Many of you may have heard his testimony in the past when he got baptized. And as an adult, he realized that wasn't the case. He was just living the life, going through the motions. And as he shared his testimony, after that, one of our young ladies went to her leader and asked to talk to her leader and wanted to trust Christ and prayed that night to trust Christ as her Savior. It was a blessing. And those kind of things happen fairly regularly throughout the year. We had a great summer between Vacation Bible School, both here at Lakeside, and the opportunity that was for our young people to serve, and then our we call it Burmese VBS. We work with the Chin folks, Pastor Rose Church, and 4 other Burmese churches here in the Des Moines area to do a Vacation Bible School. Summer camps. We took 13 of our teens on a missions trip out to northwest Montana this summer, and if you could just hear some of those stories. Working on the Indian reservation. They never know how many, the kids don't pre-register very much. They just kind of show up. They never know how many kids they're going to get. They've really struggled since COVID. And to regain the trust of kids coming out to the camp that's on the reservation, but outside of town about a half hour, to get them to come. And we've been praying together that God would provide campers for our teens to minister to. And the number that we were praying for was 20 kids. And at the end of the first day, we had 16 kids, 16 or 17. And we just went into town. In the big white van, started driving around town, asking kids if they wanted to come. Something that would be unheard of in our context here, but they said it's something that they've done on a regular basis, where they just drive around town, pray, and if they see kids, invite them to come to camp. We got several kids that were, they got invited, went and asked mom or dad, and jumped in the van, came out with us for a week. It was amazing the way that God answered. We had 20 kids by the end of that night. 3 of these kids who got in the van that night came literally with like a Walmart bag, 2 of them, when we said, hey, do you want to grab a sleeping bag? Don't have a sleeping bag. No problem, we have those at camp. Do you want to grab a pillow and towel though? Don't have a pillow. I can go back in and get a towel. At that point we just said, we've got that at camp too, we'll take care of it. Heartbreaking stories, very difficult stories. And yet God worked in some amazing ways. We saw a couple of those young people, those Blackfeet kids pray to trust Christ. And there's a group out there at the local church that is continuing to stay connected with them. And many of our teens are staying connected with them and get regular. Sometimes there's one boy, Ty, that it's daily emails or not emails, texts. And if that guy doesn't answer him, then he moves on to the next one. And he works through all 4 of the high schoolers that worked in his cabin. And but these guys have been great keeping in touch with him. So continue to pray for our teens. About half of our group they're not kids that their families call Lakeside home. Our teens have done a tremendous job inviting friends, getting them here, sharing their faith, and then inviting kids to come here and hear God's word as well. So continue to be in prayer for that group, those middle schoolers, those high schoolers, as they try to share the gospel in their community, at school, with friends at work, friends in their sports teams, things like that they would be faithful, that they would make choices that would be pleasing to God, and that we could be faithful as parents, as youth leaders, as a church, in raising those young people up to know God and to glorify Him with their lives as they move on into adulthood. So I appreciate all the support, certainly, of you as parents who have kids that age. If any of you have questions, let me know. I'll be in the back afterwards. I won't take questions on that now. And am I turning this back over to you? All right, Pastor Dave.
Give Tony a hand there. Thanks, Tony. One of the things that Tony said is a natural segue to our last little segment, talking about, what's going on with the building. And think about having a senior high group of a pretty good size, and we're asking those senior hires to come at 7 or 7:30 on Sunday night, because that's when the building's available. And so we certainly have a need for some space. And so I'm going to have Brady come up. The last thing that we're talking about. We'll give you a chance if you have any questions or whatever. We'll end with prayer after Brady gets done here. But I've asked him if he would come up on behalf of the elders and the building committee and kind of share where are we at with actually, will we be able to move dirt in March or April? Will we be able to get these different classrooms? So he's going to share a couple of things. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. I'm surprised you let me come back up here after that lawsuit update.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, so good. Praise God. Get to talk about something a little more uplifting and a little more fun. So just want to give an update on the building. For those of you that haven't seen those, these are the fancy architectural renderings. I'm sure it's going to look 10 times better than that. If it doesn't, just talk to Doug Olfest when the project's done. But we're really excited to add on the classrooms to it. These renderings, you've probably seen them posted. They've been up in the hallway before, so nothing new that we're showing you here, but that's the narthex. And then you can see the added classrooms. It's expected to be 2 stories tall that we're working on raising funds for. So total project cost, $3.1 million is the cost. As of right now, this ended up getting, it was bigger, and then we pared it back because of the inflation that construction costs went through with COVID. Then we tried to make it bigger again and settled here at 3.1 million, but that's a pretty good number. If you remember from the financial presentation, 1.7 million is in the bank. That we already have fully funded for the building. We are committed to building without borrowing, so that's why these numbers are important. You're not going to see a line item up here that says like line of credit or note to bank. It's just not on the table right now. We're just committed to this. God has really blessed us and with this building right here and building without borrowing. But 3.1 million, 1.7 in the bank, and then there's $350,000 that's been committed in 2023 that is yet to come in. So the total 2023 commitment was actually $525,000. 175 or so of that has already come in. So we anticipate that $350,000 is going to come in before the end of the year. So total by the end of December, we're really hoping for $2,050,000 of cash in the bank. Looking forward next year, so if you remember, and there's going to be people here that weren't even part of this, right? So at the end of last year, we did a 2-year commitment card. We did a 2023 commitment card and then a 2024. And in fact, we asked people if you could accelerate that so we can start turning dirt sooner and get to building. So $410,000 was committed for 2024. That we anticipate, Lord willing, certainly will come in. So the total of all of that we're looking for coming in by the end of 2024 is just shy of 2.5 million. So if everybody follows through on their commitment, and by the way, we've never come in less than the commitment. So God's always blessed. Absolutely, God's blessed. Throughout the history of us doing these capital campaigns. So the phase 1 cost, we're really close there, right? $2.5 million is phase 1. So what's phase 1 mean? Well, it means you turn dirt, you put in utilities, you put up the walls, you put in all the things to make it weather tight, obviously a roof, sprinkler system, all that good stuff, $2.5 million. So that would get the building, the exterior built for that amount, and we can do that. So Doug's worked with our general contractor to get that number. We can sign a contract for $2.5 million, which is a GMP, guaranteed maximum price. So we can start turning dirt this spring. But if we want to complete it all at once, we are $640,000 underfunded. So if we've got $3.1 million as the total project cost, 1.7 in the bank, 350 we expect through the end of this year, 410,000 for next year. So if we want to do the whole thing all at once, we're $640,000 short. The problem with just doing phase 1 is you've got to pay then for all that remobilization cost to come back in and finish the interior. And that's going to cost $50,000 to $100,000 in order to remobilize. So certainly our desire is to do it all at once. The general contractor wants us to do it all at once, and so that they can get long lead time materials on order. Based on the information that we have, we're not willing to do that right now, right? But we are getting pretty close to being willing. I wouldn't say we're 100% there yet, but being willing to sign that contract for the $2.5 million for the phase 1. And then we could take a look midway through next year on if we want to go ahead and finish it out. So that's kind of where we're at financially. There's a lot that will happen between now and the end of the year. You know, December is always a big wild card for how much is going to come in. There's a lot of giving. Just to see what God's going to do. I'm pretty excited about that. We've got the Thanksgiving offering coming up as well, which is always a lot of fun, and just to see God at work there and taking up an offering there. Any questions on the building?
We don't match this siding with the new building, do we? What do we do there? How do we match the new building with our problem here?
Yeah, Phil, Doug wanted to, but I said no. I said, you know what? They did it the first time. We're not going to do that. No, so it will be different material. Let's say similar. Doug, what's it going to be? What are they planning on? So precast concrete rather than metal panel, which is a lot better product. I mean, if we could have done that the first time, we would have, because then you'd get rid of this drywall in here, and then your pickleball slams into it. It'd be okay. Yeah. Other questions? The soccer field. The question is what happens to the soccer field? You know, my daughter plays soccer as well, and she's concerned too. So what's going to happen? There will still be a soccer field. We do have to, the building goes out, the soccer field has to move. So it's going to push that way. But we do plan on still allowing to have the soccer field. It's going to have to be regraded, replanted. It's going to get torn up, all of that. It doesn't work very well to have the building wall and then the sideline right there too. It looked good on paper the first time, and it won't work. But long term, yes, want to have a soccer field. Other questions? Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Let's give Brady a hand. He's done a good job. I'll just reiterate with him, we are committed to building without borrowing. If you're new here, that's how we did this building. This building was about the same exact amount of money by the time we bought the land and built the building. We occupied this in 2017. It was a little over $3 million. When we got in here the very first Sunday, the upstairs was not done yet. We got an occupancy permit for the downstairs. And we were about $100,000 and some short. I remember talking to somebody, well, how much are we short? I said, well, it's about $100,000 to finish just the upstairs so the youth can meet up there. And I don't know if it was the individual I talked to, because I wouldn't know what somebody gives, but in the next 2 weeks, that exact amount was in the little brown box in the back. And so we didn't go a month without having everything finished. So we're not presuming on anybody here. But we are saying we serve a great God, amen? And when we built this building, we cut this thing down so we could build it without borrowing. We did not get it. If we would have borrowed money, that thing would have, the building that we're wanting to build would have been there in the very first phase. And so we crimped everything down. And whether you could say, well, was that wise or not wise? Well, in the sovereignty of God, we haven't borrowed any money, and God gets all the glory. And that's what we want to happen. So obviously myself and everybody at Lakeside, if we want this to go through, we're going to have to step up. I don't have any, I'm not losing any sleep over whether that's going to happen. I trust the Lord. I just close. I'm going to have Brad in just a second come up. But there's a quote that I've been thinking about for the last couple of weeks from Sir Francis Drake. Does anybody know this guy's story at all? Does anybody read the books? Well, in 1577, he wasn't the first one, but he was one of the very first ones to circumnavigate the world in a single expedition. So he started in 1577, and he went around the entire world in right at 3 years. So he finished it in 1580. And I'm just going to read. This was his prayer, or this was his desire, and it kind of sums up for me how I think about Lakeside Fellowship, what God wants to do. I want to, 18 years God has blessed. But I'll tell you my burden, Polk City has grown, and there are now more unsaved people in Polk City than there were 18 years ago. And although you'd say, well, church our size, God is blessed. Yes, but there's many more unsaved people out there than there are saved people in here. And none of us should everybody be happy until the last person has trusted Christ. And so that gap is growing. And so we need to take the hill. This is not a time to throttle back. This is a time to go. So here was his prayer. He said, disturb us, Lord, when we are too pleased with ourselves, when our dreams have come true because we've dreamed too little, when we arrive safely because we stayed too close to the shore. Disturb us, Lord, with the abundance of things we possess, that we have lost our thirst for the waters of life. We're discontent. Having fallen in love with life, we have ceased to dream of eternity. And this is the last phrase. Disturb us, Lord, to dare more boldly, to venture on wilder seas where the storms will show your mastery, his mastery. Where losing sight of land, we shall find the stars. And I want us to think like that. I want us to take the hill. God has uniquely blessed us. Each one of you, as I look out, you have a giftedness. You have a love for the Lord. You have people that I will never be able to talk to. And they need the gospel. They need the gospel. The Lord is going to come back one of these days. Amen? And then all the hustle and bustle and the raising funds and working our fingers to the bones, it'll be over with. But until then, we take the hill. We take the hill for the gospel. That's what we want to do. We want to stay close to the scriptures. We want to preach the beautiful gospel. We want to call sin, sin. We want this to be a place where a person like Jessica could walk in and say she felt lighter by walking in here. I mean, that should cause you to just like, thank you, Lord, just for that. So let's take the community. Let's invite the community here. Let's be friendly. Everybody a greeter. Everybody a greeter. So are there any last questions? I'm going to have Brad come up and pray. We're so thankful for you to come here tonight. If you got any initiatives, any ideas, if you want to be a greeter, we got more newcomers have come in the community than we have bags filled. We could use some help. So much going on. Any last questions? Okay, Brad, why don't you come on up? Brad is one of our lay elders. He's behind the scenes. He's putting in hours as one of our spiritual men. And so I'm going to ask him to grab the mic and close us in a word of prayer.
Thanks for coming tonight. Let's pray. Father, thank you. Thank you for Lakeside Fellowship. Thank you for the burden that started 18 years ago. Just a few miles from here, Lord, where you brought Pastor Dave and his family, and Lord, now we sit here, Lord, reaching the North Polk community. God, I just thank you so much for the blessings you've brought to us, Lord. Tonight, I thank you for what's been presented before us. Some of them weigh heavy burdens, and Lord, things that are in your hand as we talk about a desire to see our building whole and taken care of again with the siding and the panels. Lord, I pray that you would go before us. Father, you know what's going to happen already. And Lord, may we trust you for it, walking beside you every step of the way, knowing that you will take care of us in that way. Lord, I pray for the new building that we desire to have here. God, not because we are proud of a bigger building and more space, but Lord, because we are proud of the God that we serve. And because we desire to see the gospel go out throughout this community, Lord, I just pray that you will go before us again in a mighty way. And Father, with the needs that we have, both with the monetary side of it and just with the physical needs that come with it after we get it here, Lord, may our focus be on the Great Commission, Lord, that the gospel would go out, that we would see disciples made. May we dare boldly to go out and be a light shining in this dark world. Lord, I pray for everybody here. Lord, give us a great week serving you wherever it may be, at our jobs, in school, and wherever we go. Lord, bless us. Give us a great time. We praise your Son's name. Amen.